The ocean on Xenon was unlike any ocean on Earth. Its depths were a dark abyss, an uncharted world where light itself seemed to fear to tread. The waters were thick with shadows and strange currents, teeming with life forms that defied understanding. It was a place where even the bravest Xenians, the planet's native inhabitants, hesitated to venture. But today, those depths would reveal a secret that had been hidden for eons, a secret that would challenge everything the Xenians believed about their world and about the humans who now called Xenon home. The exploration vessel, Abyssus, hummed with energy as it sliced through the thick, ink-black waters of Xenon's deepest ocean. Inside, a team of scientists, both human and Xenian, gathered around the central console, watching as the dark expanse unfolded on the screens before them. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation and an undercurrent of fear. Leading the mission was Dr. Amelia Drake, a seasoned marine biologist from Earth who had spent the last decade studying Xenon's unique ecosystems. Beside her stood Rizan, a Xenian biologist with a tall, slender frame and skin that shimmered with an iridescent hue, shifting from deep blue to silver in the dim light of the vessel. Rizan's large luminous eyes were fixed on the screen, his expression a mask of calm, though Amelia could sense his unease. "We're approaching the coordinates," Amelia announced, her voice steady despite the tension. She glanced at Rizan, who gave a slight nod. "These waters have long been feared by my people," Rizan said quietly, his voice carrying the melodic tone typical of his species. "The dread Leviathan is more than a legend. It's a force of nature, a guardian of the deep that has claimed many lives." Amelia had heard the stories, of course. The Xenians spoke of the dread Leviathan in hushed tones, describing it as a creature of unimaginable size and power, a beast that ruled the oceans with an iron grip. Few had seen it and lived to tell the tale, and those who had were left with memories of terror that haunted them for the rest of their lives. But humans were different. Amelia and her team had explored oceans across the galaxy, facing creatures that defied imagination. The Leviathan, while intimidating, was a challenge they were prepared to face, or so they thought. The vessel continued its descent, the light from its powerful beams cutting through the darkness. The sensors pinged with increasing frequency, picking up signs of life. Massive, slow-moving shapes that hovered in the deep, just beyond the reach of their instruments. "Something's out there," Amelia murmured, leaning closer to the screen. "Something big." As if in response, the vessel shuddered, the lights flickering briefly. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Rizan's skin shimmered, reflecting his growing apprehension. And then they saw it. Emerging from the shadows, the dread Leviathan appeared on the screen, a massive, ancient creature covered in bioluminescent scales that pulsed with a cold, eerie light. Its eyes, large and filled with an unsettling intelligence, glowed like twin suns in the darkness. It was a nightmare made flesh, its body stretching far beyond the edges of the screen, its tentacles writhing slowly as if testing the waters around it. A collective gasp filled the room. The Xenians aboard the vessel instinctively stepped back, their fear palpable. Amelia, however, remained rooted in place, her eyes locked on the creature. "It's beautiful," she whispered, awe and fear battling within her. But then something unexpected happened. The Leviathan, instead of advancing on the vessel as they had anticipated, hesitated. It seemed to focus on the humans aboard, its massive eyes narrowing as if assessing them. Then, slowly, it began to retreat, its enormous body disappearing back into the darkness. What just happened?" one of the human crew members stammered. Rehizan's eyes were wide, his usually serene demeanor shattered. "It fears you," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The dread Leviathan. It fears the humans." Back on the surface, the discovery sent shockwaves through the Xenian scientific community. The idea that the dread Leviathan, a creature that had terrorized their people for generations, could be afraid of the humans was beyond comprehension. It defied everything they knew about the creature and about the humans themselves. Amelia and her team, now the subject of intense scrutiny, were determined to understand the phenomenon. The question that haunted them all was simple, yet profound. Why did the Leviathan fear them? The investigation began in earnest, with the humans and Xenians working side by side, pooling their knowledge and resources. Amelia led the biological analysis, focusing on the Leviathan's physiology and potential instincts. Meanwhile, Rizan delved into ancient Xenian records, searching for any mention of humans, or something like them, that might explain the creature's reaction. As days turned into weeks, the mystery only deepened. The Leviathan was a creature of legend, its origins shrouded in myth. But the more they learned, the more it became clear that there was something missing, some crucial piece of the puzzle that eluded them. Then, in the dusty archives of an ancient Xenian temple, Rizan found it. The text was old, written in a language that few Xenians still spoke. It told the story of a great conflict that had taken place eons ago, long before the Xenians had achieved their current level of civilization. According to the legend, a powerful race, described as the ones who came before, had arrived on Xenon and waged war against a creature that bore a striking resemblance to the Leviathan. The ones who came before were never fully described, but the text hinted at beings who were not unlike humans. They had wielded weapons of great power and had eventually driven the Leviathan into the depths, where it had remained ever since, nursing a deep-seated fear of those who resembled its ancient enemies. When Rizan presented his findings to Amelia, she felt a chill run down her spine. Could it be that humans, or at least a species similar to them, had been to Xenon long before her people arrived? And if so, what did that mean for their future on this planet? Armed with this new knowledge, the team decided to return to the depths, this time with a plan. They needed to confront the Leviathan again, to understand what it knew, and perhaps to establish some form of communication. But this time, they would not approach as explorers, but as potential heirs to a legacy they barely understood. The descent was even more tense than before. The team had modified their equipment, incorporating ancient Xenian symbols of protection that Rizan believed might resonate with the Leviathan's memory. The atmosphere aboard the Abyssus was one of grim determination, tempered by the ever-present fear of the unknown. As they approached the Leviathan's territory, the creature appeared once more, its massive form emerging from the shadows like a ghost from the past. But this time, there was no hesitation. The Leviathan moved directly towards them, its eyes fixed on the humans. The vessel shook as the Leviathan circled it, its tentacles brushing against the hull. The humans inside could feel the creature's presence, a suffocating weight that pressed down on their minds and bodies. It was as if the Leviathan was trying to communicate, but its message was one of primal fear and anger. Rizan activated the ancient symbols, hoping to calm the creature. For a moment the Leviathan paused, its eyes narrowing as it recognized the symbols. But then it surged forward, its fear turning to rage. The symbols had not soothed it, they had only confirmed its worst fears. Amelia realized that they were out of time. The Leviathan was not just a creature of instinct, it was a creature of memory, a living embodiment of an ancient conflict that had never been resolved. And now it saw the humans as a threat, a force that had returned to finish what had been started long ago. "We need to retreat," Amelia ordered, her voice strained. "We can't fight this thing, not like this." But even as she spoke, the Leviathan struck, its tentacles wrapping around the vessel with crushing force. The lights flickered, and alarms blared as the Abyssus groaned under the pressure. Amelia's mind raced. There had to be a way to reach the creature, to show it that they were not its enemies. But how? The Leviathan was beyond reason, driven by fear and anger that had festered for millennia. And then, in the chaos, Rizan did something unexpected. He stepped forward, placing his hand on the console, and spoke in the ancient tongue of his people. His voice was calm, melodic, a stark contrast to the turmoil around him. The Leviathan hesitated, its grip loosening slightly. Amelia watched in disbelief as Rizan continued to speak, his words flowing like a river, filled with meaning that transcended language. For a moment, the Leviathan seemed to listen, its massive eyes filled with a mixture of rage and pain, locked onto Rizan. The creature's thoughts, chaotic and fragmented, seeped into the minds of the crew, filling them with images of a time long past, of battles fought in the depths, of a world torn apart by conflict, and of a lingering, unending fear. But Rizan's words reached the creature, cutting through the noise and the pain. Slowly, the Leviathan's grip loosened further, its body relaxing as it began to understand. These humans were not the same as the ones who had come before. They were different, yet connected, children of an ancient legacy that had shaped the fate of this world. With a final lingering look at the vessel, the Leviathan retreated, its massive form fading into the darkness once more. The tension in the air dissipated, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Rizan collapsed into a chair, exhausted but relieved. "It's over," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "For now." Back on the surface, the team regrouped, their experience weighing heavily on them. The encounter with the Leviathan had shaken them to their core, revealing a connection between humanity and Xenon that they had never imagined. The ancient records were re-examined, and new theories emerged. It was clear that the Leviathan had a deep-seated fear of humans, rooted in a conflict that had occurred long before recorded history. But what was less clear was the nature of that conflict, and whether it was truly over. Amelia and Rizan presented their findings to the Xenian Council, emphasizing the need for continued cooperation and understanding between their species. The Leviathan, once seen as a mindless beast, was now understood to be a creature of deep intelligence and emotion, driven by forces that the Xenians and humans were only beginning to comprehend. The Council agreed, and a new initiative was launched, one that would focus on uncovering the ancient history of Xenon and the mysterious connection between humans and the planet. It was a daunting task, but one that held the promise of greater understanding and perhaps reconciliation with the planet's past. As the days passed, the incident with the Leviathan became a story that was told across Xenon, a tale of fear, understanding, and the realization that the past was never truly gone. It was a reminder that the creatures of Xenon, no matter how terrifying, were not just monsters to be feared, but beings with histories and emotions of their own. And for Amelia and Rizan, it was a lesson in humility and respect for the unknown. They had faced a creature born of fear and rage, but they had also glimpsed a deeper truth, one that spoke of a shared destiny between humans and the planet they now called home. In the end, the Leviathan returned to the depths, but its presence was always felt, a silent guardian of the ocean's secrets. And as the humans and Xenians continued to explore their world, they knew that there were still many mysteries left to uncover and many more challenges to face. But they faced them together, united by the knowledge that they were all part of something much larger than themselves, a legacy that stretched across time and space, connecting them in ways they were only beginning to understand. Years later, the encounter with the Leviathan was remembered as a turning point in the history of Xenon. The creature, once feared and misunderstood, became a symbol of the planet's ancient mysteries and the potential for understanding between species. New expeditions were launched, this time with the goal of uncovering the deeper connections between humans and Xenon. The oceans were explored with caution and respect, and the Leviathan, now a known entity, was approached with reverence rather than fear. Amelia and Rizan continued their work, forging a bond that transcended the differences between their species. They knew that the Leviathan was just the beginning, that there were many more secrets hidden in the depths of Xenon, waiting to be discovered. And as they stood on the shores of the great ocean, watching the waves crash against the rocks, they knew that they were part of a story that had begun long before they were born, and that would continue long after they were gone. The legacy of Xenon was one of fear turned to understanding, of conflict turned to peace, and of a future shaped by the lessons of the past. And in that legacy, humans and Xenians found a new sense of purpose, united by the knowledge that they were all connected, by the oceans, by the stars, and by the history that had brought them together. For in the end, the greatest mystery of Xenon was not the Leviathan or the ancient wars, but the simple truth that all beings, no matter how different, shared the same desires: to live, to learn, and to find their place in the universe. And that truth, more than anything, was what would guide them into the future, together.